Here we go.
Where are we?
We are on Yud Ches Amud Aleph, but let's run through the Mishnah at Yud Zayin Amud Beis because that's really what the sugi is about. So after Gemara, Beis Shammai Oimrim, Ein Shoyin Dayayu V'Samonim V'Kashinim. You're not allowed to soak in preparation of either making a dye or making food stuff for animals, unless everything is fully soaked in by day. Before Shabbos, you're not allowed to put it into the pot and let it continue to process on Shabbos. Because the Gemara is going to tell us, the Shammai holds that a person is mechuyev on shvisas kelav. The person has to make sure that his kelim are not involved in doing the malacha on Shabbos. But Beis Hillel says there is no such issue, and your kelim are allowed to make to do malachos. You're not allowed to put a bundle of cotton into a pot in an oven, and as it heats up, it becomes white. Unless it gets fully heated up before Shabbos, so the process is completed before Shabbos. The same thing would be with putting a piece of wool into a pot that has a dye in it before Shabbos. Unless the complete dyeing process is completed before Shabbos. The Silmatir. The Shammai a person mitzuda is chaya ba'oifos v'davim ela kadeshi yitzuda livojon. You're not allowed to spread nets unless you know for sure they'll be filled capacity before Shabbos, so no capturing will be occurring on Shabbos. The Silmatir. The Shammai you're not allowed to sell a product, a noticeable product to a guy. You're not allowed to load him up before Shabbos. And Magbina love, Toyina Ime would be to load up his animal, Magbina love would be to load him up himself. Ella Kadeshi Yagila Makim Kar. Unless he reaches his home before Shabbos, you wouldn't be allowed to load him up because otherwise it looks like he's doing it on your behalf. The Vasil holds us mutter. The guy can carry, no one's going to think that it was you who's in control of it. Shammai Yomim a nice and Irish la Abdon, you're not allowed to give in your hides to process, like Caleb the Kodesh Nachri. You can't even give your clothing to the dry cleaner, unless we know they're going to be finished before Shabbos. Beis Hillel allows you to give it in, even though it's not going to be, even though it's not going to be ready, as long as you gave it in before Shabbos. Amar Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Shimon ben Gamliel said, my family used to fear sich. They would give in their clothes items, their white clothes items to launder 3 days before Shabbos. The Shabbos Elu ve'Elu, both Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel are both agreeable. Shetayanin koirish beis abad the gulei havas. You're allowed to put either grapes or olives on the press before Shabbos and then load them up with weights. And the weight will slowly squeeze the juice out of the grapes or olives throughout Shabbos. And Rashi tells us that's allowed because the malacha of mefarik, of squeezing out grapes or olives, is only if you're starting when the skins of the fruits are unbroken. And that breaking of the skins, that's the deraisa. But once the skins are crushed already, there's no issue deraisa in just putting weight on the grapes or on the olives to continue the pressure so that more juice should come out throughout Shabbos. So the real process was they would take soot, dry soot, black soot, and they would mix it with water, and if it would be worked together, it becomes like a thick dough type of consistency. Now, the Mishnah doesn't discuss someone putting his hands in and mixing it. The Mishnah just says you're not allowed to pour the water and the soot on the pot. So it seems to be saying that you don't have to physically knead it together, as in K-N-E-A-D. Rather, just by mixing in the ingredients, that will count as the kneading. Who holds like that? Who holds you don't have to actually knead it? Rabbi Yosy, Rebbe. This is the sheet of Rebbe, the Tanya. Echad noisen as a kemach. If two people were involved in making bread or matzah, so there was the guy at the station that pours flour into the big mixing pot, and then the echad noisen as hamayim, and then the next person poured water in. So the halach is achrin chayiv. The second person is chayiv if this occurred on Shabbos. Rashi says mishum losh. He's chayiv for the malacha of losh, of kneading. Shehu av malacha. That losh is an av malacha. So you see that even without physically kneading it, just mixing in the ingredients creates the malacha of losh. Very happy. You're not chayiv until you actually start kneading it together. So according to Rabbi Yosy, our Mishnah would not be accurate because just mixing the ingredients together would not form an issur. Amalei Abaye, maybe Rabbi Yosy would agree in our Mishnah's case. Because the Dilma Atkan, like Rabbi Yosy, where did Rabbi Yosy say you have to actually knead the ingredients, the flour and the water together? Ela bekemach, when we're talking about a dough. The bar gibalu, because really it doesn't get properly mixed on its own. You have to knead it in order to really make it into a dough. But when you're making ink, the lavgat bar gibalu, just by mixing it together, will eventually allow them to come together into that pasty consistency, even if you don't actually knead it by hand. So maybe Rabbi Yosy would be moida. He only required physical kneading if it needs kneading, but something that doesn't need kneading, such as the dye, even Rabbi Yosy would agree would be a chiyuv. So it's not mistaber to make that claim that Rabbi Yosy would agree. The Tanya, we lose another brayso. Echad noisen es ha'efer. Efer, spelled with an aleph, is ashes, and ofar, spelled with the ayin, is earth. So the brayso says if someone mixed in the ashes, the echad noisen es hamayim, ha'achrin chayiv, divrei Rebbe, and Rabbi Yosy Rebbe Huda Amar achi yigdabel. So you see dust, which is afer, ashes. Ashes is surely something that's not like dough, like kamach, that actually needs kneading. It would dissolve quite easily into the water without any mixing it with your hands. And still, Rabbi Yosy said that you actually have to physically mix it. So you see that even something that doesn't need to be kneaded, Rabbi Yosy also holds that you have to physically knead it. Just mixing the ingredients isn't enough to complete the malacha. So after Gemara, V'dilma my afer offer. Maybe when the Tana says afer, even though the Tana spelled it with an aleph, maybe what the Tana meant was offer earth. Earth is more like a dough that requires kneading, and maybe only when you're mixing earth with water, maybe only there did Rabbi Yosy say you have to actually mix it. So you would ask a question, if it says afer with an aleph, why would you say that it means offer with an ayin? But the answer to that is yes.
What are they mixing it for? What are they mixing the afer and the water for?
Rashi tells us if there would be earth and water would be mixed together, letit shel binyan, to be used as some type of cement.
And what would afer?
Why someone would mix ash? I'm not sure, unless it was going to be used for some type of ink.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. The dilma my afer offer. The bar gibalu. Maybe even though the Tana said the word afer with an aleph, maybe he meant the offer with an ayin. So to Gemara, Vatanya afer, Vatanya offer. There's two brises, one that said afer, one that said offer. So clearly one of them must mean afer with an aleph, one of them must be ashes, and you still see Rabbi Yosy requires that you physically mix it in order for it to be a issur. So tomorrow, midi gabe adali Tanya. If one brise listed off afer and offer, then you have no way out, because for sure it's speaking about ashes. But if it's two different brises that were quoted by two different people, maybe they both mean the same thing. Maybe they're both referring to earth and not ashes. You know, Avraham Avinu was a big honor, and he said, "V'anoichi offer ve'efer." I am offer earth, ve'efer, and ashes. So someone once explained that offer earth has no past. But it can be built into huge buildings. It can be used to plant things. It can be used to create a tremendous future, but it has no past. On the other hand, ashes came from an illustrious past. It was a building that burned down. It was something that was destroyed. So Avram said, I'm a has-been that never was. In other words, I have no past and I have no future. Something more about it. Poiskin mayim legina. You're allowed to open up a faucet. Well, in those that didn't have faucets, but they had a well or a spring, and you could open up a little route to go from the spring to your field, to your garden, Erev Shabbos and Chashuvah, right before nightfall on Shabbos, and this way your field will be irrigated all Shabbos long. So that's halacha number one. Halacha number two. The way they made their clothing smell fresh is they would set them up on a rack, and then they would burn spices underneath it. So as the smoke rose from the spices, it would permeate the clothing that was suspended above, and the clothing would have that downy, fresh smell. Or another thing you're allowed to do is manichin gofris tachas kelim. You ever notice that silver has like black, has the crevices of silver, it's blackened. That blackening is actually on purpose, and it's done to highlight the design that's carved into the silver. And the way they highlight it so that it should be very visible is they put a black substance into it. If you soak silver in very hot water, it ruins that, and it ends up ruining the texture of the silver because you don't see it that well once that black sulfur is removed. So they used to they would burn sulfur underneath kalim so that that black should highlight the form of the kalim. Miskafin v'hoichin kol hashabbos kulay. Or umanichin kiler al gabe ayin. You're allowed to create some type of bandage with some medicine on it and cover someone's eye with it before Shabbos. Or bispelanis al gabe mata, or some medicated gauze on top of the wound. Umisrapes v'leches kolay kulay, and you can allow it to help your wound heal all Shabbos long. Aval, what you're not allowed to do, is a noising chitin l'soich rechaim shalmayim. You're not allowed to load up wheat kernels into a water mill, unless you know that the mill is going to complete the milling process before Shabbos. So, frankly, more my time. Now, this here is probably going according to Beis Hillel, because according to Beis Shammai at first glance, you wouldn't be able to allow your kalim to do all these malachos. So it's probably going according to Hillel. So if it's going according to Hillel that you're allowed to have your kalim do malacha on Shabbos, what's the problem with the rechaim? Zok the Gemara, my time, Amarabba, mepnei shemashmaas kol. The problem with the rechaim is it doesn't just do malacha, but it makes a lot of noise. Meaning everybody's going to know. Rashi says, "Mepnei shemashmaas as a koil." The avsha. Let me push the Gemara up a little bit. There we go. The avsha milsa is Shabbos v'kizilusa. Everyone's going to know about this malacha that's occurring, and that's a little bit of a bezoyin for Shabbos, and that's why it's not allowed. And that's why even Beis Hillel holds it's not allowed, because when it's an obvious thing that's occurring on Shabbos, that's an embarrassment for Shabbos. Amalei Rabbi Yosef, v'lei mamar mishum shvisas kelim. Why are you saying that the reason why it would be usher to put wheat into a rechaim shamayim is because of the bizoyin of Shabbos, the zelusa of Shabbos, because it's noisy? Maybe it's because of shvisas kelim. The Tanya, v'chol asher amarti aleichem tishmu lasos, and from there we learn shvisas kelim. So Rashi says, "Rabbi shvisas kelim." The Chassidus illuminate. It says earlier that the pasuk that says v'chol asher amarti aleichem, it says l'man yiluach sharcho b'chamorcha. So the pasuk seems to be indicating, in fact, that there is a problem and an isser of allowing your kelim to do a malacha. Ella Amar Rabbi Yosef wants to argue with Rabbi. He wants to say that Beis Hillel also holds that it's usher for kelim to do a malacha. And if that's the case, we're going to have a lot of explaining to do. We're going to have to understand Beis Hillel's shita in our Mishnah, and we're going to have to understand all these items in the price we just quoted, why it will be mutter. But Ella Amar Rabbi Yosef, Mishum Shvisas kelim. The reason why you're not allowed to put wheat into a mill is because you have to prevent your kalim, such as your mill, from doing the malacha. Correct the Gemara. The Hash the Amrit Beis Hillel is Shvisas kalim. If you're going to say that according to Beis Hillel, there's a problem that you're not allowed to let your kalim do work, well then we have a lot of explaining to do. Dairaisa, Gofris Umugmar, so Vash the Amrit Beis Hillel is Shvisas kalim Dairaisa, Gofris Umugmar, Gofris and Mugmar, my time is sharu. Why is it mutter to put those things under your kalim? Why are you allowed to burn spices under your kalim on Shabbos? And why are you allowed to burn sulfur under your kalim on Shabbos? Zaktimara, because there's different levels of your kalim doing malacha. The reason why Gofris and Mugmar are allowed, there's nothing active that your kalim are doing. They're just sitting there and holding something that's burning. But the kalim aren't physically involved in doing some type of process. So it's a very passive type of use, and that passive type of use, even though your kalim cannot do malacha on Shabbos, passive type of malachas, they still hold would be allowed. Unin shall pishtan, my time is shari. So going to our Mishnah, where Basil said you're allowed to put unin shall pishtan in a pot, why is that allowed? Again, we shouldn't delay avid ma'aser. The pot's not doing anything. The pot is merely containing the unin. They're just sitting there. Well, what about Matsudas Chaya v'oif v'dovim? There you have a snare that grabs the leg of an animal that might be walking by. So that snare or that trap is actually having motion. That's grabbing something. That for sure should be usher, because that's called an active type of activity, and the trap isn't merely passive. So Gemara, no. Matsudas Chaya v'oif v'dovim to cover my time is short. Why would it be there? But for Hashanami, the lechi for cookery, the loy covered mice. It's a passive type of trap. Lechi would be a hook. If a fish swallows a hook, the hook's not doing anything. It's just there. It just exists, and that causes the fish to get stuck. Or cookery is a basket. They would have a basket that was in the shape of a cone, and the fish would swim in to the large end, and when it tried to get out the narrow end, it couldn't get out. And it couldn't back up because now the edges of the woven reeds of the basket get stuck in its gills as it tries to back out. It can move forward because the hole's too small. It can't move back. But again, this is a passive type of trap, and that would be mutter. So Gemara v'hashta, Amar v'oishia, Amar v'asi, Mantana, Shvisas kel deraisa b'shamahi, v'loy Beis Hillel. But now that Rabbi Yosy argues on Rabbi Yosef and says, no. Beis Hillel holds there's no problem whatsoever with your kalim doing malacha. And Beis Hillel doesn't hold of that pasuk that it teaches us that kalim can't do malacha. So you don't need any more of this whole chiluk that we said item by item that this is a passive, that's passive. Even if it's active, Beis Hillel would not prohibit kalim doing malacha. So the Hashid Amar V'Oishi Amar Basi Mantana Shitzus Kel Neresh B'Shamai the Loy Beis Hillel. Then we could say the Beis Shammai Bein Ka'avid Ma'isa Bein the Loy Ka'avid Ma'isa Osir. According to Beis Shammai, no matter what, any kalim that do malacha are osir, whether it's active or passive. And the Beis Hillel Afal Gav the Ka'avid Ma'isa, even though the kalim are active, like an active snare, even that Beis Hillel would be matir. Sure, it would be matir. The hashta, the amrit, to the Beis Shammai, afagav the loy avid ma'isa aser. Now that you're saying, according to the Beis Shammai, any type of kelim doing malacha, even if it's not an active kelim doing malacha, it's still going to be aser according to Beis Shammai. That means this brisa that we listed off with Poshkin Ma'imokina, the Mugmar, that has to be going according to Beis Shammai, because according to Beis Hillel, it would be mutter. So according to Beis Shammai, where it's usher alpha gav loy ma'isa, it's still usher ihachi mugmar the gofris my time no shower Beis Shammai. Why does Beis Shammai agree in the brisa that you are allowed to put those spices under your begadim? Why would Beis Shammai be mad to that? That should be a problem of shvisas kelo. Zoktim word, the reason why even Beis Shammai allows it is because my kalim are doing nothing. Because Hasam Manacha Ara. I didn't put the gophers or the mugmor, the spices in a keli to burn underneath my clothing or underneath my kalim. Rather, I just set it up on the floor. So it was not sitting in my kalim. So my kalim in those cases were doing nothing at all. And that's why even Beis Shammai is agreeable that those cases would be mutter. Right, tomorrow, what about gigas? We know people make beer. And when you make beer, you have to allow the hops to soak in the barrel for multiple weeks. So for sure, it gets soaked over Shabbos. So that means the malacha of creating beer is ongoing in your kalim, and it has to go over at least one Shabbos because it takes at least 8 days to make beer, Rashi says. Or vener. People light candles before Shabbos to light up their Shabbos. How could you allow your ner to be doing a malacha for you on Shabbos? Or ukdera, when you have a food on the pot, a pot on the flame over Shabbos, so you'll have warm food Shabbos day. How could you allow that pot to stay on the flame? Or shvud, if you have a spit with an animal on it that's cooking in a fire over Shabbos, how would you be allowed to have that? My time is Shari Beis Shammai. How in the world does Beis Shammai allow those things if he holds your kalim are not allowed to do any malacha? Zok tomorrow, big chiddush, the mafker lahu afkuri, because you're mafker it. So Rashi says it has to be the only way you can allow your kalim to work on Shabbos. So if you have a pot on the stove over Shabbos, you must be mafker it. Beis Shammai holds you actually have to be mafker. You have to say it's not mine. And Tosfos asks, normally to do hefker, you need 3 people. It has to be done in front of 3 people. Where's the 3 people? You don't always have 3 people. So Tosfos says, since we know, that every Yid wants to keep Shabbos, his hefker is good, even by himself. And there are some Rishonim who speak out that it goes with the halach of hefker, bezdin, hefker. Bezdin automatically will be mafker any kalim that are involved in the malacha because we want to facilitate that people can have warm food on Shabbos, and they need to make beer, and these are all essential functions. So Bezdin made a hefker, bezdin, hefker on those kalim, so that even according to Beis Shammai, it would be possible to have the warm food on the stove. Zok Gemara, man tana laha the Tana Rebbe. Who would be the author of the following brisa? Loisa mala isha kedera associates beturmison. A woman should not fill up a pot with these types of beans that take a very long time to cook. It takes like 24 hours to cook. And you put it into an oven Erev Shabbos, not because you plan to use them on Shabbos, you actually need it for Motzei Shabbos, but it takes like a full 24 hours to cook. So you put them out before Shabbos, so you'll have them from 11 Malka. You're not supposed to do that. If Nosnon, and if you did do that illegally, L'Motzei Shabbos Asur B'chdei Sheyasu. You're not allowed to use them right away Motzei Shabbos. You'd actually have to wait all of the time that it would have taken had you put it up after Shabbos. In a similar case, lo yimali nachtoin chavish shel mayim v'yaniach l'soicha taner erev Shabbos and chashocha. A baker who needs warm water to cook for Motzei Shabbos, he shouldn't fill up a barrel of water and put it in the oven so that it should stay warm all Shabbos long, so he can use it Motzei Shabbos. Then also came, and if he did do that unlawfully, the Motzei Shabbos asurin b'chdei sheyasu. Again, he has to wait the amount of time it would have taken to warm that water, Motzei Shabbos, even before he starts to use it. So let's say that these 2 halachas are going according to Beis Shammai, but according to Beis Hillel, it wouldn't be a problem because you'd be allowed to let your kalim do malacha for you over Shabbos. So tomorrow, afilu tema Beis Hillel, even Beis Hillel would agree to the last 2 prohibitions that we just discussed. Why? This is a famous chomer. There's a gzera that if we allow you to keep these things in the oven, we're afraid you're going to want to try to hasten its cooking, and you're going to mess around with the cholim, with the coals, that'll make it heat better and cook faster. And since you're putting yourself in danger of possibly being mechal Shabbos, of being mechat the cholim, it's completely outlawed. You're not allowed to leave things on the floor.
Yosy,
Yes.
Right. Well, if you're leaving it there for a whole Shabbos or after Shabbos, why would we be worried that you don't want to hasten the heat? I don't get it.
Because these are items that require a lot of heat. So even though it's going to be there for an extended period of time, there's still a chashash that I'm going to try to increase its heat.
Okay.
How is it that Beis Hillel allows you to put mugmer and gofresh underneath the kalim? You might play with the fire there as well to get the smoke coming good. Why don't you make the gzer there? So if Gemara, the ligzer, by mugmer and gofresh, there's no way he's going to try to fan up the flames. The imachti, because if you did do that, solid bukutra, that would cause black smoke to form. Because that would actually ruin the process. So in order for the mugmor to work, to make the begonim smell good, or for the gofresh to work, to blacken the silver in just the right places, you can't touch it. Touching will make it worse. So therefore, we know nobody's going to touch it by mistake because they don't want to risk ruining their process. What about unin shepishna that you have in a pot in the oven? Nami ligzer hasam. Why don't you geyser there that I might make the fire hotter, and that will be an issue there. So to markiva the kasha zika, since it's very bad to allow air in, it will ruin the pishton. If you allow air in, lo megalale, you're not gonna, no one's gonna open up that oven and mess with anything because it's gonna ruin it. Similarly, what about when you're putting wool into a pot to dye? Why don't you ligzar that also you're gonna be mechata ligachalam to make the flame bigger? There, it's speaking where the pot was taken off the fire. So there's no problem of being because there is no fire there at all. In fact, why aren't you worried that someone will uncover the pot and stir it? And stirring it also makes it cook faster, and that's also going to be an Isser of Bishul, Rashi tells us. So not only was the pot taken off the flame, but it's also sealed with some type of paste around the lid. So you won't even be able to open the lid. And if you start to attempt to open the lid, being that it's difficult because it's smeared with some type of sealant, you're going to remember and you're not going to stir it by mistake. Now that we have this whole new concept of asering, putting things on the flame on Shabbos, before Shabbos, because it might lead to someone trying to hasten the flame and playing with the cholim, it opens up a whole new set of elements. Hi keder chayasa. What if I had a pot that was full of raw meat, that no matter what happens, it will not be ready to be eaten tonight? Shori lanucha erev Shabbos and koshocha b'tanura. You'd be allowed to put it on the fire right before Shabbos, and you don't have to worry that he's going to be mechata ligacholim to hasten the cooking. My time, even lechazi, leorta, since no matter what he does with that flame, there's no way that this dish will be ready for tonight's meal. Asuchin masach daitaminei, he's not going to think about it tonight. And he's not going to be mechata ligacholim because it's for tomorrow. It's for sure going to be ready. It's going to cook overnight. For tonight, no matter what he does, it won't be ready. So because of that, we don't need to take a precaution that he's going to do something to make it cook faster. How about ubashel shapidali? If it's fully cooked, it's also fine because no one's going to be mechata b'cholim because there's no need to. It's fully cooked already. But if it's bashel, below bashel, but if it's only partially cooked, then usher, then it will be usher because then you might have an urge to hasten up that cooking so that it will be ready to be eaten tonight. Now, what happens if you had such a case where you have a pot that's somewhat cooked and there is a chashash that I might try to be mechata b'cholim? The way I can get around that is v'shad be'garma chaya. If you throw a raw piece of meat into it, then you've shown, without a doubt, that you're not planning to eat this tonight because that raw piece of meat will not be ready tonight no matter what you do. That shows that I'm only intending to use this food tomorrow, and for that there's no need to hasten up the cooking. And therefore, shaper domi, it would be allowed, and there would not be a problem, a chashash of shema yichat b'cholim. and now that we also learned earlier, that if it's something, that if air gets to it, so if it's left exposed and air gets to it, it's going to get ruined, and therefore, we know someone's not going to open it up and risk the entire dish. So if you have a case where there's a risk to ruining the food when it's uncovered, that's also a protection against shemiyechat. So now we're not talking about cooking in a pot. Now we're talking about roasting on an open flame. High besar the gedi. If you had the meat of a gedi, which is soft, which tends to cook quickly, vishart, and it's also smeared. So the oven is covered with sealant. So a gedi is soft meat. It can get ruined if you drum up the flame. That could ruin the dish. That's one thing that's holding you back from being mechateh b'cholim. Also, the oven is sealed, so there's another barrier that's preventing you from being mechateh b'cholim. Shaper dummy would be allowed because you have two things here that are working in your favor. The barcha v'loishar. What if it was the meat of an older animal, an Agudah, and that's not so damaged by air? It's a much more robust type of meat, and so you don't have that protection. And v'loishar, and your oven is not sealed, so you don't have the protection of the oven sealed as well. Also, it would be also to leave that in the flame because we're afraid you will drum up the flame for such a dish. How about the gaji v'loishar? So it has one protective measure, that it's a gedi, and it gets ruined if the flame gets too high, but it doesn't have the second protective measure. The oven is not sealed. Or on the flip side, the barcha b'shar, the meat itself wouldn't be damaged by making the flame stronger, but the oven is sealed, so there's that protection. So what would the halacha be? So in that case, it's a machlokes. Rav Ashi Shari. Rav Ashi held one protective measure is enough to be matir, and then you don't have to worry about shemiyechet b'cholim. Rabbi Yirmiyah Midifti asur, but Rabbi Yirmiyah Midifti said that it's going to be asur. Okay. I just want to make one correction. The reason why a gedi, the meat itself, will stop you from being mechateh b'cholim is not because the flame is going to ruin the animal. It's because the air, when I open up the oven, its exposure to air will ruin the dish. So that's a protection from opening the oven and being mechateh b'cholim. Fact the Gemara, Ula Rav Ashi, the Shari, according to Rav Ashi, who holds that when there's only one protective measure, either the oven is sealed or it's the type of meat that will be damaged if you let air into the oven. According to Rav Ashi, that's mutter. Hatnan, there's a Mishnah that says, "Ein tzoylin basar, batzel ubeitza ela kadesh yitzulu midoichayim." You're not allowed to allow meat, onions, or eggs to be roasted unless it's fully roasted by day. Why should it be usher? According to Rav Ashi, we know it's mutter even with one protective measure. It's going to prevent you from being mechateh. So why is this Mishnah answering? The Mishnah is answering Hasam the Barcha v'lo. The case of the Mishnah that's saying you're not allowed to is speaking when there's not even one protective measure, and therefore there's a chashash of shemiyechet. But if there's even one protective measure, according to Rav Ashi, that would be enough to allow you to leave it on the flame. Ikadamri, or there's another way this shiloh was presented in a more kuladik fashion. And they said as follows: the gedi, if it's meat of a gedi, which will be damaged by air if you open the oven, bein shark, bein lar shark, shapitam. Even if the oven isn't sealed, you're still allowed to leave it on the flame Shabbos, because the fact that there's only one protective measure, the fact that the meat will be ruined if you open it up and expose it to air, that's enough to prevent shemiyechet. So that the one factor alone is enough that you could leave it on the flame. The bar chanami b'shark, if it was meat that wouldn't get ruined from the air, but there's a protective measure because the oven is sealed, again, only one protective measure. Shaper dummy, that's also good enough, and we will allow it to remain on the flame. Ki pligi, where is there a machlokes? The bar chavalishar. The whole machlokes is when there is no protective measure at all. And even there, Rav Ashi shari. Rav Ashi holds there's no chashash of shemiyechta, even though there's no protection whatsoever from the chita. Rabbi Yirmiyah Midifti asr. Rabbi Yirmiyah Midifti would hold that it's asr. In fact, the Gemara, Rav Ashi the shari, according to Rav Ashi, there's no chashash shemiyechta. without any protection at all. You could still leave meat on the flame. We have a Mishnah that says you can't leave meat on the flame. But nan ein toilin basar b'atzulu beitza ela kadeshi yitzulu mibayayim. So how would he explain that Mishnah if he holds there really is no chash of shemiyechta? So tomorrow, hasam b'bisra grumri. The case where the Mishnah says you're not allowed to isn't when you have meat in the oven. You have meat in the oven, I'm not worried shemiyechta. But the case of the Mishnah is when you have meat sitting directly above coals. So it's like on a barbecue, directly above coals. There, everything is so open. Rashi just not in an oven. There's no cover, there's no door, there's nothing. It's wide open. And therefore, and it's so easy and natural for someone to be mechata. There, even Rav Ashi will prohibit. Ravina said, "Hi karachaya." If you have a raw squash that you put on the flame, grilled vegetables we call it, shaper dummy, you'd be allowed to leave it on the flame without having to worry about shemiyechta. The kivin the kashal zika kibaser the gidida. Since we know air is bad for it, we know you're not going to open the oven to be mechata the flame because it's going to ruin the squash. So it's just like the meat of a gdi, where we said since it's going to get ruined if it's exposed to air, that itself will prevent someone from opening the oven to be mechata b'dechol. Zok Gemara vayta b'shami armim ein moichel. Taner Rabban b'shami armim lo yimkar adam cheftzay l'nachri. A person shouldn't sell something that he has to a goy. Lo yashilenu, and you shouldn't lend the goy something that he owns. Lo yalvenu, or you shouldn't give him al talva. And Rashi says yashilenu means I'm lending you something that you're going to give me back. As is, I lend you my animal, you're going to give me back my animal. Yalvenu means I'm lending you something that you're not going to give me back. You're going to give me back its value. Like when I lend somebody money, he's not going to give me back those same dollar bills. He's going to give me back other dollar bills of the same value. And you cannot give a goy a gift on Erev Shabbos, unless the goy will reach his own house before Shabbos, because otherwise it looks like he's working for you. What does that mean, Dr. Rashi? He has to get to the house that's closest to the wall. Rashi says, based on samach l'chayma means shal ir acheres shanach ridorsha. So if the guy lives in another city, he has to get at least to the entrance of that city. So once he gets into the city, he can put it down. Rabbi Kiva says, as long as he gets out of the Jew's house. So at first glance, it would seem like Rabbi Kiva is arguing on Beis Hillel. Zok the Gemara, Rabbi Kiva is not arguing on Beis Hillel. Rabbi Kiva is arguing on the Bryce's interpretation of Beis Hillel. Amar Yosy by Yehuda, hein divrei Rabbi Akiva, hein divrei Beis Hillel. Rabbi Akiva is not arguing on Beis Hillel, he's explaining Beis Hillel. And he's saying, like bar Rabbi Akiva el afarish divrei Beis Hillel. He's arguing on the Tanakh. Tanakh Kama says that Beis Hillel holds you have to be able to get it to buy it. The guy has to be able to get it to his city. Zok Rabbi Akiva, no, Beis Hillel's matter, the moment the guy leaves my house, it's already good. You don't have to go far. So Rabbi Akiva is just trying to show that Beis Hillel is more makel than what the Tana thought it was.
Yeah, just according to that shot, you're assuming that the guy lives in another city. The guy didn't live in the same city.
I guess so. We're assuming that the guy lived in a different city.
But according to that shot, if he lived in the same city, what would he?
I guess he has to get to his house. The guy would have to get to his house.
Okay.
Now, there's a whole bunch of raid on this sugya, but it's already 6:26. Let's see. Oh no, we have a little bit of time.
We have time.
So Elvin spoke on a lot of very interesting things on the sugya, because this thing of your kalim doing work for you, or this thing that we had by a rachayim, since it makes noise, there's a svara to aser, because it's a bezoin for Shabbos. So it brings into question of, are you allowed to use a time clock on Shabbos? So there was a very big shaila if you're allowed to use a time clock on Shabbos. But Moshe said that it's actually usher to set up a time clock on Shabbos. So for instance, let's say I want to have a scrambled egg on Shabbos morning. So what I could technically do is I can set up the stove to come on 9 a.m. on Shabbos. And all I have to do is, before it comes on, I could prepare the scrambled eggs, put it in my frying pan, put it on an idle stove, and then suddenly at 9 a.m., the clock will activate and the flame will come on, and I have delicious fresh scrambled eggs. So Rabbi Yosy said that's not allowed. But if you're cooking before Shabbos, you're allowed to put it on a time bake to shut off the oven. Where Moshe says something very, very interesting. He said if they had Shabbos clocks at the time of the Gemara, where Moshe said, I have no question in my mind that Moshe said that Chazal would have answered it. Because it sort of bypasses the idea of Shabbos if you use time clocks. And it's no different than a mere la'akim. But Rabbi Moshe said the fact of the matter is time clocks were not around in those days. And because of that, Chazal didn't answer them. So we can't answer them on our own. And therefore he holds that to a certain degree, you are allowed to use time clocks. But for things that are very noticeable, you wouldn't be allowed to. So for instance, he holds you're not allowed to use a time clock on an air conditioner. Now I'm assuming he meant like a window air conditioner. So when the time clock clicks, it makes a big noise, and everybody knows that the time clock is bringing on the air conditioner. He said that would not be allowed. And there's a whole shaila, are you allowed to put your radio on the time clock? Let's say we're in wartime and we want to make sure to have the latest information. Would you be allowed to put your radio on a time clock? So there's been a lot of different shilas about it. On the one hand, there might be a problem. People will be choshed him that he's turning on the radio on Shabbos. Marim Shik says that you don't have to worry about that because people know you're from. People know you're going to use a time clock. People know that you're not going to be doing something that's usher. But there's a whole big shaila about it if you'd be allowed to do that. Deborah Rav had a shaila.
Sorry, Yosy. You said with the air conditioner because everyone would know. How would that be different than the light? Or he holds the light, you know,
because it makes noise. He says because it makes a lot of noise.
What? So light goes on. That's even just as much.
And
I don't see the difference.
I don't either. So I'm not sure how. I know Rav Moshe is talking about an air conditioner. Could be he says the same thing with a light.
Okay.
Could be he does hold you're not allowed to use it for that. I know Rav Moshe is machmer when it comes to time clocks, but other poskim are maker. So the Devarchina had a shaila if you're allowed to put your dishwasher on a time clock. So Friday night you finish eating, you load the dishwasher, and then you can set it up on a time clock to come on at 1 a.m, and then you have your dishes washed the next day. So he said even though there's no Meforsh Isser on it, the Devarchina said it lacks Kavod Shabbos. But that's in and of itself a whole shaila. There's another shaila here. You're in your sukkah and the bees are bothering you. Are you allowed to set up an insect trap? Are you allowed to set up an insect trap in your sukkah on Shabbos? So the elephant wants to bring down that this will be totally in a machloekes between the Magen Avram and the Chazon Ish. He says as follows. The Malacha of Tzeder, we were discussing in the mission about setting up traps, right? Now, if I set up a trap, how could I be over that Malacha? How could I be sure that it's going to get trapped right away? Like I'm not making the trap work. So he brings down, there's a machloekes, and he holds as follows. The Magen Avram holds that the only way it's a Malacha, the rice of Tzeder, is if the moment you set up the trap, instantly the animal gets caught in the trap. So you'd have to be setting up the trap in such a busy place where literally you set it up, bam, it gets caught. But if it happens a while later, that's not the malacha of Tzeder. Because Inish holds, if you set up a trap and you're pretty much guaranteed that it will succeed, even though it might not succeed immediately, like an hour or two, that's enough to make it a malacha deraisa. So, based on that, that's if you're trapping an animal that you want the animal. You're trapping an animal that you want for food. What if I'm trapping an animal because I don't want that, such as an insect? I don't want it there. Or a mouse. I don't want it there, so I have a mouse trap. So that's called a malacha she'ein shricha l'gufa. A malacha she'ein shricha l'gufa is also less chomer than a regular malacha. So Rabbi Elephant said, the paskin that if I'm setting up an insect trap, I have two students to be matter. A, it's a malacha she'ein shricha l'gufa. I'm not looking to capture the bee because I want the bee. I want to capture the bee because I want to get rid of it. A, And B is, since when you set up the insect trap, it doesn't instantly catch the bee, it could take some time. Even though you're pretty much guaranteed that it will capture bees, but it doesn't happen immediately, which means according to the Magen Avram, that's not a problem. So since you have those two sniffing, those two factors, to be makel, he says there's a very strong support to be makel and to allow you to set up an insect trap on Shabbos if the insects are bothering you.
Sorry, Yosy, is there any chiluk between Yom Tov and Shabbos for trapping?
I'm talking about Shabbos. I'm not sure what the halacha would be for Yom Tov, but I think when it comes to trapping, they are the same. But he's saying it should be mutter even on Shabbos, because it's a malach shin shricha legufa, and your trap does not work instantaneously. So because of that, it should be mutter. Again, I'm not passing halacha l'maisa. I'm just throwing out.
No, but you said specifically Shabbos. So what would be Asr on Shabbos could possibly be mutter on Yom Tov?
No, he wants to say that it would be mutter on Shabbos.
I know, but when he says, but he's specifically saying Shabbos. So what might be Asr on Shabbos? I'm saying he's saying possibly could be mutter on Yom Tov. I'm just saying because he said specifically Shabbos.
No, I don't know. I don't think so. I think he was speaking about Shabbos because that's what the Sukkah is talking about.
Okay.
But the way I react to all this information overload that I get from our elephant is, I make a note in my mind that I know that if I ever had a need to want to set up the trap, instead of being embarrassed, ask the Rav, thinking that for sure it's usher, I know that there's definitely a shaila.
Have some ammunition.
Asking exactly. So give us some information. Okay, I guess we could stop here. So let's have a wonderful day, and let's hope Hashem will bail us out of this tight spot that we're in, and Hashem should help us that we should have a shefa of bracha, parnasa, of health, and it should be a day that only puts a smile on the face.
Just to
Akiva?
Yosy. Yeah, hi, good morning.
We have to discuss our corporate sponsors.
Yeah. Well, who sponsored today's shir was Dave Zolty, right? He's on for the week.
Thank you very much, David, for sponsoring the shir this morning. It should be a schus for the neshama, and your father should be a male judger on all of us.
Amen. I spoke to the Rav yesterday, and he didn't recommend. He said that Hallel is one thing that we can all do together. He's not in favor, obviously, of people davening together, but Hallel is a unique mitzvah, and he says there is something that if we do it together. I'm just interested if the Olam is interested in doing that. And
like a Zoom Hallel?
Zoom Hallel?
Yeah, Zoom Hallel, exactly.
Sure.
The regular davening.
Every time we have Hallel during the weekday, it feels like a Zoom Hallel.
It depends, Akiva. It depends who's on the Zoom. We have to wait for somebody for 5 minutes to finish Manesra.
Yeah, someone made that joke to the Rav during the meeting, and he said that that's the beauty of it. Now he can daven at the regular speed. He quoted the Gemara in Brachis from Rabbi Akiva, who said he had to daven a Shemona Esrei depending on the oilam. Remember that Gemara?
Yeah.
So
He used to make sure.
Let's just set a time. Let's just set a time. What time Hallel will be?
I know. So it's based on Nate's. Nate's that day's 7:10, I think, 7:09, Thursday.
Okay.
So you figure Hallel is around 7:20. Give some people who missed a little bit, Nate, 7:20. We can say Hallel.
Akiva, shkach for the picture of the shul.
Do you want to get a chazan? You want me to ask Shlomi Goldreich? Or do we go low and we ask Ari Horowitz? What do you want?